So welcome students. So let us start our first class of VLSI design course. This VLSI design course, in the introduction itself I have explained about all the contents of the VLSI design course, what I will be teaching in this course. The syllabus of the VLSI design I have already explained. So let us move forward. Yeah, this was the syllabus. I have already talked about the syllabus. I have talked about the course outcomes of this this course, and I have already told you about the books which you need to follow for this course. Now let's go to the introduction of the VLSI. What's VLSI? VLSI is known as very large scale integrated circuits, or we also call them as very large scale integration. Fine. The ICs which are having more than 20,000 devices. These are specifically the ICs which are having more than 20,000 devices. Fine. More than 20,000 devices. Devices means transistors. Specifically, they are transistors. Fine. Now let's see IC in front of you. Fine. A typical IC and operating IC. What I've taken an example of operating IC. It's a processor. This is an example of a processor. Just a second. This is an example of a processor. This processor is doing the processes, and all those transistors, these green dots, fine, these green dots, small green dots, you can see this means small green dots. What are these? These green dots are transistors. Fine. These green dots are transistors. So an IC which is having more than 20,000 transistors, an IC which is having more than 20,000 transistors, please focus on this, more than 20,000 transistors on a single IC, more than 20,000 transistors on a single IC, then the development of such IC is known as VLSI, very large scale integrated circuits. Such ICs are known as very large scale integrated circuits. Right? One of the example is in front of you. So what happens if you have studied in your electronics 2 and electronics 1, you might have studied all those semiconductor devices like diodes, transistors. Fine. Then what you have done, by using the diodes and transistors, you have made some circuits. If you remember, by using the diode, you have made the half wave rectifier, full wave rectifiers, the clippers, clampers, and by using the transistors, you might have designed the amplifiers. Fine. So all these circuits, you might have also seen these circuits in your labs while implementing on them onto the breadboard or to the PCB. Fine. You can implement those designs onto the PCB or onto the breadboard. But what if you wanted to include such circuits as the number of such circuits as 10,000? Let's say there is a requirement that you need to design the amplifiers. The amplifier, those are in number as 10,000. Fine. Or you need to design a single board on which you require 10,000 functionalities. Let us understand in this way. What if, please understand my question, what if you wanted to design a board, an electronic circuit board, on which you need a 10,000 functionalities on the same board? What you will do? If you will design using the PCB, or you will design using the breadboard, then what will happen? You need to have a breadboard or PCB of very large size. Imagine the half wave rectifier and the full wave rectifier, or the power supply, 12-volt power supply, which you might have studied. How much components does it have and how complex it is? What if you wanted to design a circuit, a PCB or a breadboard having 10,000 functionality? It would be of very large size. Fine. So what you have to do, since you are using the processors in your mobile, in your laptop, in your desktop, you know your processor can do n number of things. How it can do n number of things? Because it has n number of circuits on that processor. Fine. How that n number of processors came onto a single processor which is of this much size? How it has happened? Actually, that is known as very large scale integration. That is known as very large scale integration, when you have scaled your very large circuit into a small design. Did you get it? What you have done, you have a very large circuit which is capable of doing 10,000 operations, different operations, amplification, rectification, and computation like summation, arithmetic operation, logical operation, everything. It can do everything. So it will have different circuit for doing different things. If you embed means if you make all these circuits on a single IC, on a smaller IC, that is known as very large scale integration. Because what you are doing, you are integrating means making all the circuits on the same IC. So you are basically integrating, then you are scaling. Why scaling? Because these circuits will take lot many space. Fine. So you are taking all the circuits on a small chip. So that is scaling, and that scaling is done at what scale? At a large scale. You are doing the scaling, but at what scale? At a very large scale. So this is very large scale integration. From there the name is derived as very large scale integration. Fine. So I think you might have understood what is very large scale integration. I'll repeat it again. Scaling your big circuit, a bigger electronic circuit, into a smaller IC is known as very large scale integration. Fine. So let's go through some of the history. This is the first BJT which is designed in 1947 at the Shockley lab, Bell Labs. Fine. Bell Lab is very famous. Most of the things have been invented at Bell Labs. You might have studied that C++, those also evolved from the Bell Labs. Fine. Your many electronic things like bulb by the many electronic things, they all are discovered at Bell Labs. So similarly, the first BJT was invented in 1947 at the Bell Labs. Fine. Then in the a BJT, you might have seen the BJT. I'm talking about that BJT, not the IC. I'm talking about only BJT. Fine. Then 1958, after 10 years, the single transistor integrated circuit was developed by Texas Instrumentation. What is this? Single transistor integrated circuit. So what is this? This is just a single transistor. Look at the size. Fine. And look at the size of your processor. Your processor of this much size, which includes 10 billion transistor. Fine. So what was the technology in 1958 and what is the technology in 2020? Fine. So in 1958, the size of a single transistor on an IC was this much. Then let's move forward. In 1963, the first CMOS based logic gate was invented. Fine. So even in this syllabus also we'll focus on the CMOS rather than BJT, because only CMOS is used for fabricating or designing your integrated circuit. This is very important. Fine. Only CMOS is used for fabricating your integrated circuit. There is a reason for that. I'll let you know what is that reason, why only CMOS is used for fabricating the integrated circuit. So that is also one of the benchmark, that in 1963 the first CMOS based logic gate was invented, or the integrated circuit, CMOS based integrated circuit was invented. And soon after after 7 years, look at this, soon after, in 7 years, the scientist was able to invent the first microprocessor. Fine. What is the requirement of an electronic circuit? Why are we making the electronic circuits? We are making the electronic circuit to automate the things. Are you getting me? Automate means to make the things automatic. Everybody wants a automatic washing machine, everybody wants a automatic microwave, everybody wants a automatic world, machines to be operated automatically. Then who gives the automation? Who gives the intelligence? The microprocessor. Fine. So the ultimate aim of electronic circuit was to give the automation. Fine. So after the invention of CMOS based ICs, after 7 years, immediately after the 7 years, the first microprocessor was discovered, and the name was Intel 4004. Fine. It consists of 2300 MOS transistors. Fine. So it is known as VLSI circuit. It consists of 2300 MOS transistors on a single IC. Fine. Let's move forward. This was the history. And in 1978, AT&T Bell Labs, again at the same place, AT&T Bell Labs, the name was given, the name to the integrated circuit those was developed at AT&T Bell Lab, the name was given as Very Large Scale Integrated Circuit, VLSI. So the name, who coined the name of VLSI? It was named at AT&T Bell Labs in 1978. Fine. So that was all history. What happened in the more recently, almost 20 to 30 million transistor was fabricated on a single chip. Why I am using the name as fabrication? Because the process of developing these IC is known as fabrication. Fine. So more recently, almost 20 to 30 million transistors was developed on a single IC till 2002. Fine, I'm talking about 2002. Total you were using I think Intel i5. Fine, you're using Intel i5, and Intel i5 has 2 billion transistor. 2 billion, can you imagine? 2 billion transistor on a single IC. 2 billion transistor on a single IC. Fine. So this is the story of 2020. And till 2002, 20 to 30 million transistors were fabricated on a single IC. Fine. So 20 to 30 million transistor on a single IC. And what is the size of that IC? The size of that IC is about 2 by 2 centimeter square. Fine. What is 2 by 2 centimeter square? With having a size of 2 by 2 centimeter square and 20 to 30 million transistor on a single IC, using the electronic microscope, you cannot even look at that particular transistor. That particular transistor is a size of either a microbia like germs and viruses. Fine. So you cannot see them with microscope also. That is of so small size. That is known as VLSI. Fine. The art of designing such small transistors, the circuit with such small transistor, is known as VLSI. Let's move forward. Let us talk about little VLSI technology. We have to deal with this VLSI technology. Please don't get confused. These are all introductory parts. Fine. This is nothing related with electronics. These are introductory parts. Fine. So what is the economic impact? What happened? Let's see what is the economic impact. What happened in the from 1975, since the first microprocessor were built. After every decade, when you see the market, this is the market growth of VLSI industry. VLSI industry is growing very fast rate. Fine, because there is a requirement of ICs. Everywhere there is a requirement of ICs. Fine, everybody want their circuit to be smaller size, not that much size. You want your mobile to be this much size, not this much size. Fine, so you want ICs. That's why the VLSI market is growing and growing and growing. So one of the benchmark which was always shown in all the VLSI books, that is from the 1999 till 2002. What happened? Almost $188 million. I'm talking about billion dollars. Sorry. So in 1999, the market rate of the VLSI industry is about $188 billion, and in 2002, only after 3 years, it jumped to $268 billion. Look at this. It jumped to $268 billion. Fine. So why does there was a jump? Because there is a huge requirement of ICs, and because of this huge requirement, what has happened? Let's see what has happened. Look at this cycle. Please focus on this cycle. Don't focus on the entire slide. Just focus on this cycle. What happened? Due to very high market growth, I've told you there was a market growth from 2002 till today. There is a very high amount of market growth of VLSI. Fine. Lot of investors. There are many investors, many millionaires, billionaires who are industrialists. They are trying to invest their money into the VLSI market. Fine, they are putting their money because everybody knows that once you put the money in the growing market, your money will grow. So all the investors are started investing in the VLSI market. That put an immense pressure on the VLSI designer that please scale the transistor more and more, because more and more people are investing into the VLSI market. So it put an immense pressure on the VLSI designers to scale your transistor. You know, scaling, how you are able to accommodate 10,000 transistor or 10 million transistor on a single IC. What you're doing, ultimately you are scaling, making your transistor as a smaller and smaller. This is how you are getting the ICs. Fine. So more investors are investing into the VLSI market. It puts a pressure onto the VLSI designer that please scale the transistor more and more, because we need smaller ICs. You are making the mobile smaller and smaller. Since you are making the mobile smaller, then the IC or the processor into that mobile should be more smaller. Fine. So you keep on scaling the transistor. As a VLSI designer, you keep on scaling the transistor, and scaling the transistor will lead to higher performance. That means more speed, as you have seen in your mobiles. 2 GHz processor, then 2.2 GHz processor, then octa-core 2.4 GHz processor, and till today you are getting the Snapdragon 3 GHz processor. Fine. So how it is able to do? You are scaling the transistor of that processor, then you are getting the higher performance, lower cost, and because of lower cost, what happened? The market has grown more and more. Fine. Since market is growing more and more, so more and more people, more and more investors are coming and investing into the market. And then again in the same cycle, it is putting again the pressure onto people like you, the engineers, those who are into the VLSI market, that please scale the transistor more, so that more number of transistor can come onto a single IC. Fine. So this is the cycle which has been followed till date. Fine. So how it's possible? We'll see it using a Moore's law. But first let us see this chart. What this chart is saying? This chart is saying that starting from the mainframe computers in the 1960s, which was having only 1 million transistor on a single IC, till from 1970, 1980, 1990, which was having mini computer, PC, desktop internet, mobile internet, till mobile internet, which is having 10 billion transistor on a single IC. 10 billion transistor on a single IC. What you're doing? Please look here. You are scaling the transistor. Ultimately what you're doing? You are scaling the transistor, which was 1 micrometer in your 1970s and 1980s. It is 32 nanometer in 2010. And let me tell you, as a VLSI engineer, I'm a VLSI engineer, let me tell you, it is 7 nanometer in 2020. It is 7 nanometer in 2020. Fine. What is the 7 nanometer? This is the size of a transistor. Nano. Do you understand nano? Nano means 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Fine. 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Can you imagine? 10 to the power minus 9 meter. 10 to the power minus 10 is angstrom. Angstrom, where you measure, angstrom means the unit where you measure the size or distance between the nucleus and the electron in an atom. That much is that you came to that much size of a transistor in 2020. Fine. So what I'm trying to tell you, that how are you able to integrate so many functions, so many transistors on a single IC? That is only because of scaling the transistor. You are keep on scaling the transistor from 1 micrometer till today the 7 nanometer. Fine. And all this has been successful because of one law, which is known as Moore's law. Fine. You have to remember this law. What does Moore's law say? Let's come to this. Moore's law. Moore was the co-founder of Intel. You know, the founder of Intel. After the founder, he was the co-founder of Intel, Gordon E. Moore. Fine. So Gordon E. Moore, he was involved in the designing of processors. So he was ultimately involved in the VLSI industry. So he observed that after every 10 years, what happened? The number of transistors, look here, the number of transistors in a single IC, how much it has grown? Look here, the number of transistor on a single IC, it has grown to almost 2 times. Almost 2 times every 2 years. It becomes doubles after every 2 years. For example, in 2020, if the number of transistor on a single IC is 10 billion, then in 2022, the number of transistor on that kind of IC would become 20 billion. Fine. This is the level of development. This is the level of scaling. This is the level of what do you say? This is the level of scaling. Fine. So Gordon Moore, he observed that after every 2 years, the number of transistors on a single IC, they becomes double. Fine, because you are scaling the ICs, and you are putting more and more transistor onto the same IC to increase. Why you are putting more transistor? To increase its functionality. Fine. So he observed that after every 2 years, the number of transistor became double. Fine. And this law also says that the overall processing power. What is overall processing power? The overall processing power means the processing speed of the processor. That you also might have observed that every year the processing speed of the processor increases. For example, in your i3 processors or P4 processors, you are using 2 GHz processors. 2 GHz, what does 2 GHz means? That it is able to execute 2 into 10 to the power 6 instruction in a single second. That is 2 GHz. Fine. So from that time till i5 and i7, which is having a speed of 3 GHz, that means you are able to execute 3 into 10 power 6 instructions in a single second. Fine. So that is how the speed of your processors has been increasing. Fine. So this law also says that after every 18 month, the speed of the ICs will become 2 times. Fine. The speed of the IC becomes 2 times. So this is the Moore's law. I'll provide you this video also, so you can closely see that in the 1970, since the birth of the 4004 Intel 4004, what was the number of transistors in it. Fine. And then in the 1982, when Motorola processor was developed, what was the number of transistor in that. In 2000, when AMD processor was developed, what was the number of transistor in that. And in 2018, when these all many transistors were developed, then what are the number of transistor in that. Fine. So I'll provide this video, so you can pause it and you can see what is the number of transistors which are developed. So what it has been observed, this is scaled, this x scale is having a difference of 2 years. So you can observe after every 2 years how many number of transistor has been increased. So you can see it has increased almost 2 times. Fine. And the speed of transistor, speed of the ICs, not the transistor, the speed of ICs has become almost double in every 18 months, specifically 18 months. Fine. So that is the Moore's law, and because of the Moore's law only you are able to get your dual core processor, octa core processor this much. Fine. Because your VLSI designers are following this Moore's law. Let's move forward. We have to study some of the design domains, which are used for VLSI technology. What are these? These are the various domains or the various ways in which your VLSI IC can be seen or can be observed. Fine. So your VLSI IC can be observed either in the behavioral way. Your VLSI IC can be observed in the behavioral way, structural way, or physical way. Fine. What is behavior? Behavior, we all know, it's an English word, it's a basic literature word, behavior. When you are explaining the behavior of somebody, that is behavioral. Fine. Similarly, for any circuit which is fabricated on a IC, if you are observing its behavior, then explaining such kind of IC in this context is known as behavioral design. Fine. For example, if you are designing an IC Fine. Then what is behavioral domain of that IC? You are trying to explain that what this IC, how this IC will behave. This IC will take how much amount of voltage, what types of input it can take, what type of output it will generate. So that is ultimately what is behavioral domain. Fine. What will you do in the structural domain? In the structural domain, you will exactly make the structure of that IC, that what are the number of transistor, where is the number, where are specific transistor will be placed on an IC. Fine. What are the connection between that those transistors? That is known as structural domain. Fine. And in the physical domain, you are actually giving the physical size of this IC. What is that size of IC? What is the geometry of that IC? Well, whether it will be rectangular size, whether it would be a square size, and within that square size, how many the number of transistor will be placed where and where. That is physical. So structural domain and physical domain almost look similar, but when we'll study, we'll understand the difference between structural and physical domain. Fine. So all these things which I am telling in today's lecture are in a broader view. You need not to go very deep onto this, because these all are related to VLSI technology. Fine. From the next lecture, we will go towards the electronics domain, electronics part of this VLSI, where we will be designing exactly the circuit which will be fabricated on an IC. But in today's lecture, we will be focused on the broader view of VLSI. Fine. So I have told about the domains. What are the three different domains in which you can explain the VLSI technology? One is the behavioral, where you explain the behavior of a circuit. Structural, when you explain the structure of an circuit onto IC. Physical, when you physically explain that how is what type of circuit and how is the circuit on the IC. Fine. Let's move forward. Y chart. It is named after the it is named by the scientist Jassky-Guhn chart. So Jassky-Guhn, he designed a chart in these three domains. Fine. The three domains were behavioral, physical, and structural. So he designed the chart in three domains: behavioral, structural, and physical. Fine. So he told that, as I've already told you, in the behavioral domain, how to design, how to explain the behavioral domain of an IC. So behavioral domain of an IC can be explained either by the algorithm. Fine. How you can explain the IC by the algorithm? For example, if you are using the IC for, let us say, the operation of ending, you know, the logical ending. For example, you are doing logical ending. Fine. So if you are doing logical ending with an IC, then what you will do, you can make a flow chart that you are taking two input. Fine. Then you are ending both the inputs, then producing the result. So this is nothing but the flow chart, a flow graph, or an algorithm. You can call this as an algorithm. So when you are giving the algorithm of a particular circuit, that how this circuit will behave, that is known as, that will come in the behavioral domain of IC design. Fine. Next thing what you can do, you can give the resistor transfer language. What is the resistor transfer language? I'll explain you this when we'll go to the 5th unit, but broadly you can understand this, that if you are designing an IC, then you can design the signal flow graph of that. What is signal flow graph? That when you are designing the IC, first signal will come here, then the input signal will go here, then the supply you will give here, then the output signal will go from here. That is resistor transfer language, or resistor transfer level. You can also call it as resistor transfer level. Fine. So you not to worry about that what is resistor transfer level, because this won't be asked you anywhere. But you should know that in the behavioral domain, how can you explain your IC in the behavioral domain? By the algorithm, by the resistor transfer level, by the Boolean expression also you can explain. How? If you are again, if you are giving your AND gate, then what you can do, you can either give y equals to a dot b. This is what, this is a Boolean expression. So by giving the Boolean expression, you can explain that what this IC will do, how this IC will behave. Fine. Also mathematically you can give the differential equation. Fine. Mathematically you can give the differential equation also to explain that how this IC is working. Can anybody I'll pause this video and think for a second that if you wanted to design y equals to a dot b, then what differential equation has to do with this? I'll explain. When you design this kind of circuit, you will design this kind of circuit is with using the transistor. You might have studied TTL logic, CMOS logic in your digital circuit. So CMOS logic will focus in the syllabus. I'll explain everything about CMOS logic, but let us for a second understand how you will design this y equals to a dot b using the transistors. Using the transistors, y equals to a dot b could be designed something like this. You will take a CMOS, one NMOS, and then one PMOS. Give the inputs on them. You'll use some more NMOS. Give inputs on them also. Fine. And at the drain, you will give the supply. Fine. You provide a ground here, and then you can take the output from here. Something similar to this. This is how you design the logic gates using the CMOS transistor. Fine. Now this CMOS transistor is producing the output. How it is producing the output? Some current is flowing through them. You have studied in your electronics subjects. Some current is flowing through them. How you explain that current? You explain that current using a mathematical equation. Fine. Using a mathematical equation, and that mathematical equation is basically a differential equation that is differentiable with respect to a particular parameter. That's why it is given here. Using that differential equation also you can define your integrated circuit. Fine. So in the behavioral domain, you can define your integrated circuit in these 4 ways. Fine. Similarly, in the structural part, let us come to the structural part. You can design your define your integrated circuit at the processor level, that what kind of processor your IC will be having. Fine. Then what kind of resistors does it is having, what type of logic gates it is having, and what type of transistors it is using. When you are giving these specification, that what type of transistor it is having, what type of logic gates it is made from, that is known as structural domain. Then in the physical, you are giving the floor plan. I'll explain you what is floor plan. Floor plan means just a second. So in the physical domain, you explain your IC in the physical domain as you can give the floor plan. I'll explain what is a floor plan. It is a method of fabricating your IC. So floor plan, I'll give you overview. Floor plan means giving the specification that where will be the layer for the gate, where will be the layer for the drain and source, where will be the layer for substrate. What is substrate, gate and drain, I'll let you know. So you can give the floor plan. You can give the module design also, that where are the modules placed on IC, complete IC. For example, processor is placed here, input output pins are placed here, then logic gates are placed here. So you can give the module design also. You can give the cell level design, that where are the different cells placed on the IC. Then ultimately at the lower level you can give the transistors, where each particular transistor is placed. That is known as physical domain. Fine. So you need to know only the Y chart. What does Y chart means, and what is the use of Y chart in VLSI. Fine. Then this is the VLSI design flow which has been made for you. This VLSI design flow will tell you that how the ICs has been designed. Fine. From the upper level where you are giving the specification. Fine. From the upper level where you're giving the specifications. So in this design flow, let's see, first we start with the design specification. Actually this is the VLSI design flow, how we actually design an integrated circuit. Fine. So what we do, we start with the design specification. This is what is the design specification. Let's see, this is your design specification. Fine. What do, you for example, what are specifications? Actually when you go to the market to buy any electric equipment, you should know its power dissipation, power consumption, that it is 100,000 watt, 1 kilowatt. You should know its voltage rating, you should know its current rating, it's 16 ampere or 6 ampere or 5 amperes. Fine. So similarly, before starting any integrated circuit design, you should know the specifications. Fine. So firstly, in the first step, you give the specification that what type of IC it is. It is multi-layer IC, single layer IC, or what type of IC it is. Fine. And what many functionalities this IC will have, and how many pins this IC will have. Fine. Then what you do, you schematic it. That means you make its schematic. These are, for example, this is a window, a computer aided tool where you make your integrated circuit designs, and these are known as schematic. Fine. So you make the schematic and then create a symbol, because the same circuit will be used in the IC for n number of times. Fine. The same circuit, if we go to the IC, the same circuit will be used with n number of places. So for n number of places, we have to design the same circuit again and again. So what we can do, using the computer aided tool, using the computer aided tool of VLSI, we can make the symbol of this circuit and use same circuit more than one number of places. Fine. Then we do the simulation. Simulation means check the functionality of the circuit, verify the functionality of the circuit. So when the functionality of the circuit is correct, then you go to the next step. Otherwise you go back to the schematic. That means there is some problem in the design, there is some problem in the schematic, so you again go to the second step, do this schematic design again, then again create the symbol if there is a problem. Otherwise you go to the next step. What is the next step? Designing the layout. Now let us come to the layout phase. What is layout? Actually what happens when you design an IC, you have to fabricate an IC. Those transistors which I was talking about in the initially in my lecture, I was talking about those transistors. Those are small transistors of 7 nanometer, 22 nanometer, small transistor. These are not physical entities which you go and join into the circuit, similar to our BJTs which are available in the market. They are actually fabricated on a silicon wafer. You have a silicon wafer, then using the fabrication method, you fabricate these transistors on that same silicon IC. Fine. So for fabrication purpose, you need to have a layout. Fine. For fabrication purpose, you need to have the layout. What I'll do in my next class, I will explain you very briefly, because that is not a part of your syllabus. That is a part of a different subject that is known as IC fabrication. Fine. That's why I'm not going very deep into the fabrication part. I will explain a little bit about fabrication in my next class. Fine. So there I will tell about what is a layout and how to design the layout and why we are designing the layout. Fine. But you should know that after simulation we design the layout, then we will do the design rule checking whether our layout fulfill the requirement of IC. It may not happen that our IC is of this size and our layout is something like this, trapezoidal. Fine. Our layout should match with the size of the IC. That is known as design rule check. So we check whether the design is perfect or not with some rules. There are some pre-written rules that the distance between two transistors should be this much, the distance between connection of two transistors should be this much. This is already fixed. Fine. So we need to check those in this step. Then we do the extraction. What is extraction? we do the RC, resistance and capacitance extraction. What happens? There are n number of circuits in an IC, fine, and due to n number of circuits there is some load resistance and load capacitance of wire also, of transistor also, and of connection also. I am repeating, there are load capacitance and load resistance of what? Of transistors, of circuits, of interconnections between the transistors. Those all resistance and capacitance need to be taken into account for calculating the DC voltage characteristics, the dynamics like delay of the circuit. The resistance and capacitance of these elements will definitely affect the delay of the circuit, so we will extract those resistance and capacitance, fine, and then we do LVS, layout versus schematic checking. This is this is where we have designed the layout. This is where we have designed the schematic. This is the schematic, fine, and this is the layout. So in this step we will check whether our layout and the schematic are same or not. There should not be 1% error between the layout and the schematic. Once in the next class I'll tell you about the fabrication, then you will definitely know what does layout mean, fine. For that time, until that time, you should understand that at the last step, second last step, we do the layout versus schematic checking, fine. Then we do the post layout simulation. Post layout simulation means we have designed the schematic and we have designed the layout also, fine, and then we do the simulation of layout along with the parasitic capacitance and parasitic resistance. What is parasitic? The load capacitance and load resistance extra which is added apart from this schematic, fine. That is known as post layout simulation, and this is the flow of VLSI design. This is how a IC design takes place, fine. So I think that's it for now. Please do understand these things very carefully which I have told you. Please don't get confused because I have told you many things which are in a broader view. You may not be able to understand these things at this particular time, but as the class goes on in the second lecture, third lecture, these things will be very clear to you, fine. Once these things are clear, then we'll go to the MOS transistor explanation, because that is the basics of VLSI, fine. Whatever which I am telling you as of now are VLSI technology basics, fine. So they are very different from MOS transistor basics. Once these VLSI technology basics are finished, then I'll talk about the MOS transistor basics, fine. So please don't get confused. This is a this needs a little higher thinking level, fine. So please don't get confused, and in the next class I'll be talking about the IC fabrication steps. Thank you very much.